الكرام إلى هذا الحوار الخاص مع معالي وزيرة خارجية السنغال. Minister Yassine Fall, it's a pleasure to have you on this interview on Nile News Channel.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, Egypt and Senegal have long historical relationships back to 1960, when Egypt was the first country to recognize the Senegalese liberation. And now, how do you evaluate this long relationship between the two countries?
Indeed, Senegal and Egypt have been very long sister countries, very long partners since independence. You know, our presidents, from President Senghor to President Abdou Diouf, have always been very close, you know, with each other and supporting each other's African continent, international continent. Today, I just visited archives where, you know, these presidents were signing letters, signing, you know, collaboration on contracts, etc.
Yeah.
So this has been a very, you know, important relationship culturally, you know, politically, economically. And today, we want to put that partnership, that collaboration into a new, whole new level, especially with economic, you know, putting economic ties,
yeah,
strengthening them.
To what extent do you think that Egypt and Senegal has the same platform or the same point of view regarding the political important issues to the African continent?
Indeed, I think that both Egypt and Senegal have been promoting peace,
yeah,
in the African continent in several levels. We understand the role Egypt has been playing, you know, in receiving a lot of refugees from Sudan,
yeah,
from Libya, from other countries. The same for Senegal, from, you know, the refugees from other countries. Also, long-standing democratic, you know, processes and stability, playing for stability in the country, because there is no development without stability.
Sure.
But also playing an important role at the African Union,
yeah,
in terms of leadership, in terms of, you know, putting really important issues that are important for the continent. And as Africa is now moving towards playing an important role in the G20, both Senegal and Egypt have been really advocating for one Africa with one voice,
yeah,
but also coming to the G20 with a very strong Africa agenda, a very strong development agenda,
yeah,
to not be just a token seat, but a seat that will be significant for the present and the economic future of African countries, especially African youth.
Regarding the fields that could be a major, maybe joint fields between the two countries in the cooperation process between the two countries, Egypt and Senegal, what's the new regarding these fields? Do we have new areas that haven't been maybe recognized before, or the two countries didn't dig in it before?
Well, I first of all would like to recognize the long tradition of cultural Islamic cooperation,
yeah,
between Egypt and Senegal. We know that so many Senegalese religious leaders, but also people who study Islamic, you know, teach Islamic studies, because Islamic study is not just religious, it's also in all humanities, in science and technology.
That's right.
So the Al-Azhar Institute has played a very important role in training Senegalese, you know, imams, Senegalese religious leaders, but also as an institution of learning in Egypt. And first of all, in that area, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of really promoting Islam of peace,
yeah,
of solidarity, ensuring that our young imams get trained,
yeah,
you know, into really how do you prophetize, how do you lead, you know, the Islamic, you know, leadership in terms of using the Quran as a, you know, text and as a way of promoting peace and teaching, you know, Islamic religious solidarity and development.
In this matter, how do you think that Al-Azhar is playing an important role, or maybe we need to do more? Al-Azhar, I think, ready to enhance this, to reach this platform.
We are right now, I think we have about 200 students who are right now in Al-Azhar. But we want to put, emphasis on young people, because we understand also that terrorism, the seeds of terrorism is youth. And also, we want to promote an Islam of peace, an Islam of development, an Islam of knowledge.
Yes.
And we feel that, this is something that can be promoted. So I think targeting young people, bringing also other forms of teaching in terms of leadership building is very important within, the relations between Al-Azhar and Senegal. And also using Senegal as, also a place where Egyptian religious leaders can come, because we have a lot of important religious gatherings that, will require, which brings a lot of, guests from outside the Islamic world. So I think we can promote a lot more the exchange.
Yeah.
We can promote a lot more developing a more agenda for young people, using also the new technologies for, Islamic studies, going also with modernity. So I think there's something that we can do. Now, coming to the area of relations in area that we have not explored before, there is a lot of areas we can explore before. As you know, Senegal now has a new leadership. We have a whole new team that is now leading the country with the leadership of President Bassirou Diomaye Faye and the Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko. We have presented to the Senegalese people and to the world our new program agenda, Senegal Vision 2050, that has different pace that has already a short-term program, a medium and a longer-term program for 25 years. And in this area, we are really putting emphasis on development, on also industrialization, on transforming what we produce, what we have. And Senegal is very well endowed in resources, in natural gas, in oil and gas, in phosphate, in different other minerals, and and also a lot of land, arable land. We are going to now develop one of the biggest development projects that we have done since independence, which is a very important irrigation program coming from the Lac de Guiers, the Guiers Lake. This is a lake that is coming from the Senegal River. As you know, Senegal River is shared by 5 countries, and one of the major source of water is the Lac de Guiers. And we are going to have this very big irrigation program coming from Lac de Guiers to really irrigate large pieces of land until from the north to the middle of the country for agriculture. And for that, we are going to farm rice, we are going to farm wheat, and because Senegalese are very big consumers of rice, I think per capita we are among the 5 top consumers of rice in Africa. Yes. We consume a lot of bread, so we need a lot of wheat instead of importing farm wheat. And Egypt and Senegal have tested together, wheat farming, wheat crop in Senegal, in the north and other parts of the country through our, research, agriculture research institute, ISRA, and Egypt. And this is now the time for really, implementation, the time for really kind of, using the research result for, to really, farm wheat. So there's a lot of, area of partnership agriculture, irrigation, but also in other areas. One area that is extremely important is pharmaceuticals, pharmaceutical product and equipment. As you know, COVID has taught us that, pharmaceutical and medical sovereignty is key to sustainable development and human development.
Sure.
Because when COVID happened, every developed countries hoarded, their medicine and their equipment, and it was even difficult to find a needle. So Africa is waking up and saying it is time for us to have sovereignty. And Senegal is saying that there are very important areas of development where we need to produce those products at home. And pharmaceutical is one, and Egypt has made a lot of advances in this area, and also have managed to have low-cost medical, medicine, which is extremely important for us. So we think that this is a very important area where we can exchange, And also, there's a big market in West Africa, because don't see Senegal as 18 million people, see it as ECOWAS.
Did you discuss those fields with the Egyptian officials during this visit?
Absolutely. We discussed with the Egyptian Prime Minister and with the Egyptian Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Economy, really areas of cooperation. We discussed also, transport. How can we, promote maritime infrastructure? We have the Canal de Suez, and we have the Suez Canal, and we have also, Atlantic Ocean. And there's a lot of, opportunities for promoting your maritime, exchange, because if you want to get into major exchanges in terms of, agriculture, in terms of industry, we need also transport.
Yes.
We also used to have also Egypt Air in Senegal, and we know we have Air Senegal, so we are also looking at how can we promote joint venture. So our conversation really look at private sector development, investment, but also from a win-win position. How Egypt can really, work with Senegal to build, to farm, for Senegal to get crops and for farming products, and also for Egypt to get farming products and boost, its food production and access to food.
As you mentioned minutes before, there's a whole team now taking the responsibility of Senegal, and of course there's a huge program for economic reforming in Senegal. What's now the most important stage that you are seeking in this reform program?
Well, what we are seeking, is that first of all, we have been starting to look into contracts we have signed.
Contract,
because, and see how can we not kick people out, but how can we negotiate? How can we ensure that Senegal benefits from contract it's signed? And also, how can we diversify our partnership? And the diversification of our partnership starts with, working with African countries, where we can share, development, initiative that enable us to win equally. Diversification of partnership to us means that, instead of going so far, look inside the continent and learn from experience from people who are, in certain areas less developed and who have made, qualitative leaps in advancing in certain areas of development. And we feel that, this is something that we can do together with Egypt in different areas.
You just mentioned the private sector. What's the upcoming to the private sector in the two countries, joint venture?
We like the idea of public-private partnership, but also we like the idea of joint ventures. We feel that we discuss a lot how Egyptian companies can work with Senegal private sector together in key areas, because the ambitious program that we have requires important level of investment, an important contribution and participation, qualitative participation of private sector. And we are talking about really ensuring that, first of all, we give priority to Senegalese and African private sector. My ministry is called Ministry of African Integration and Foreign Affairs. And one of the tasks that I have is really how do I promote bilateral economic cooperation with African countries? How do we ensure that African private sector be given priority into developing Senegal? Because we understand and we believe that if African private sector is investing in Senegal, we can certainly understand and know the do's of don'ts of success. How can we avoid certain mistakes? But we can also, accumulate our experiences and make qualitative, progress together.
Yes.
So this is an area where, we feel it's important. We also feel that, looking at, different mechanisms of financing, development. Green, and we discussed today with the Minister of Economy, experience of Egypt in really financing mechanism through green financing. And Egypt has done quite, an advancement in that area, and Senegal would like to do that. So also exchange of experiences, of learning in terms of, really private sector development, and how also the banking system within, Africa and Egypt can also contribute. We have here Exim Bank,
Do you have a plan for linking the banking systems in the two countries?
Yeah, we have Exim Bank, first for trade, very big in Egypt, and that is an African bank that really is also promoting private sector and promoting also bilateral cooperation between countries, and also supporting, investment transfer and technology transfer within countries. And I think there is also a very important area where we can work very well is digitalization. I met the Minister of Communication at Francophonie meeting in Paris.
Yeah.
And we discussed a lot, he comes from private sector, actually, your Minister of Communication, which I'm saying hello to. We have discussed a lot areas of cooperation in terms of digitalization and communication, and also how private investment and private sector investment can really push this collaboration between different countries, Senegal and Egypt.
Regarding all this, can we as Egyptians may think about maybe privileges to the Egyptian private sector, Egyptian companies to come and invest in Senegal, maybe new taxes, rules for the win-win situation between the two countries, and to encourage those companies to come to Senegal.
What I discussed with the minister is that anything that we are doing has to be win-win. And we feel that from our discussion, there is a comparative advantage that Egyptians can have with what they are offering to Senegal.
And Senegal think that this could be done?
Absolutely, absolutely. We feel that we discuss it and we show really the mechanisms that exist already that actually has been done with other countries in Africa. And also Senegal also is creating the enabling environment, the security environment, because you cannot do anything without stability, without security, and also without strong institutions and enabling environment for private sector to feel safe, to see that the investment, there is a return in investment, and also there is return in investment for the other country.
Regarding the Sahel and Sahara region, it's very important to Senegal. You have long borders with Mali, I think 500 kilometers, if I'm right. And this is a huge challenge to the security in this area regarding terrorism and that fears to the whole world, not only for the African continent. What Senegal did in this file, and what's the new?
Well, fighting terrorism is, I think, one of the among the top priority of all countries.
Yes.
And we cannot address, issues of terrorism in the Sahel without understanding also what is happening in Libya, in Africa, in our region, and in the North Africa and the Sahel. Governments are working together to share intelligence, to share information,
yes,
to develop, agenda for fighting terrorism, because it's terrorism and the whole humanitarian situation are together, because all of these wars in insecurity also lead to large population moving out of frontiers, and it creates instability. So we are saying that this should be a regional agenda for fighting terrorism. It should be also an agenda between countries to foster bilateral ties in terms of access to information, intelligence,
yes,
but also really having a common strategy for really controlling frontiers, for looking at what is going on in other countries, and ensuring that there's stability in other countries. I think that Libya is a very important country that is now making important efforts to secure its frontier, but there is a huge humanitarian issue. There is a lot of problems also related to people to migration. That is also putting young people in harm's way and putting them in situations that are a situation of vulnerability, and we need to also address that.
And how Senegal look to the external interference in this issue, specifically terrorism?
Well, we are a sovereign country.
Yeah.
And our government, one of the things that we say is sovereignty is a safe country, a stable country, a peaceful country, a democratic and a sovereign country. So sovereignty to us is political, it is also security and humanitarian, it is also economic. And we cannot do one without the other. And one of the things that we do is, of course, protecting our frontiers, but working with other countries that are in ECOWAS, in our sub-region,
yes,
to promote peace, to jointly fight terrorism, to jointly address humanitarian, questions, but also to create a platform for dialogue.
But for the ECOWAS, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso already withdrew from this bloc. And do you think that ECOWAS could maintain its message, could play more rules in these files after this withdrawal?
Well, ECOWAS is always continuing to say that we're promoting peace, we want dialogue. There is no conflict in the world that they don't end at the table. Yeah. So there should always be room, and there is always room for dialogue, for discussing. Of course, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are sovereign countries. If they decide to get together and organize IS, we should respect that. As Senegalese, that will never, disturb our brotherhood, our collaboration, our bilateral ties with these countries. And indeed, our message is always a message of promoting a strong ECOWAS,
yes,
a unified ECOWAS, because united, the future is for big economic ensembles, but also ensembles that respect each other, that play by the rule, that do not have a double standard, that respect and take every country the same way they take other countries. So there is, of course, room for improvement,
yes,
in terms of governance, in terms of collaboration, in terms of supporting each other country, in terms of not putting a country in situation of vulnerability. But all of that is something that we need to continue discussing. There is no future in breaking away, and I think that at the end of the day, we will find a way to sit down. There is no conflict that doesn't end at the table.
Do you think that the three countries may revise their situation and maybe back to ECOWAS?
It is not for me to say. We are talking bilateral. I speak with all of the ministers of foreign affairs in those three countries. They are all my brothers.
Yeah.
And, discussion always happen, openly or behind the door. But I think that for us as Senegal, our message is a message of peace, a message of dialogue. Our message within ECOWAS is we want to continue this entity, and we want to strengthen it, and we want to improve it, because nothing is perfect in life. And, it is important for us to continue as this ensemble. It is an economic ensemble. It is an ensemble that allows people, goods, yes, and services to circulate, and it can be strengthened.
Minister Fall, we are now hours far away of the ceasefire in Gaza Strip, and Senegal played an important role in this. Senegal went to the International Court of Justice to just help the Palestinian people and Palestinian authorities, and you always refused what's happening there in Gaza Strip, and of course the Israeli occupation for the Palestine. What's the message now? And we are waiting for the ceasefire and prisoners exchange between Israel and Hamas.
This is really Senegal, as you know, has been really leading in the committee in the UN committee for the inalienable rights of Palestinians since the 1980s. So since the 1980s, Senegal has been at the UN at the forefront on demanding and protecting the rights of Palestinian people. In Senegal also. As you know, President Yassine Arafat was given a Senegalese diplomatic passport by President Senghor, and we've always had a Palestinian embassy in Senegal. So this is something that is very dear to Senegalese people, to see this ceasefire take place. We salute it, and we want to see it happen. We have always been vocal in terms of denouncing and condemning the violence, the barbaric violence that was being perpetrated against the Palestinian people, and also in Lebanon. So we feel that there is no way that the world can continue living like this. We need to have a two-state solution, and we need to have it fast. So we are saluting the ceasefire. We hope that it will be sustained and hostages will be freed, and that we can work together with other countries to rebuild Gaza. We salute, of course, Egypt's role in this. There will be certainly a lot of solidarity needed to support the reconstruction of Gaza and the return of the refugees in due time. And we are really, saying, this is overdue. And we are really, saying that thank God that this is happening, and we want the ceasefire to be effective and to be sustained and to be long-lasting.
And while we're waiting for this to happen, I may ask you about the Senegalese point of view of what's coming diplomatic for this issue, Palestine.
Well, our position as Senegalese have been very clear. Our position have been that, really Palestine should be a state recognized internationally by all. We are very happy that certain countries have been actually, since, the crisis, more countries, even European countries, have been coming to recognize Palestine as a state. Senegal has been saying that, we need a two-state solution. We need a state, a Palestinian state and an Israeli state living side by side in peace.
Yes.
And this is what we are standing for, and this is what we're going to work for internationally, within African continent, within our sub-region, but also at the global level, given that our role in leading the Committee for the Inalienable Rights of Palestinian People.
After more than 80 years of occupation to Palestine, do you think that two countries living side by side insecure, do you think that this could be reached?
I believe it can happen if there is the political will, if everyone plays by the rule, when we stop the double standard, and if we really ensure that, Israel, behaves and respect, UN treaties and UN resolutions. I think that it requires the world to be much more firm. It requires the world those powers that are, really not recognizing that it is time for peace and it's time for UN resolution to be implemented and respected. If we do that, of course, it is possible. And the world, in solidarity, will help Palestine. All of the world will help Palestine, and Africa will be at the forefront for that.
Yes. Minister Fall, finally, I'd like to back to the bilateral relationship between Egypt and Senegal, and what's the upcoming step in this relationship? Now you are in Cairo, so what's next?
Well, next is a mission by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yeah. We are waiting for him in Senegal. He is coming with private sector. We have in April a very important forum, private sector forum in Senegal.
Yes.
After developing our Senegal Vision 2050, and putting together now our agenda and what we need and what needs to happen for this agenda to work in terms of, internally, but also with collaboration with our foreign partners and African partners. We are calling for a private sector forum, and we hope that Egypt will be there and play a very important role. And I'm waiting for my brother to come visit me in Senegal. And of course, that would be like now the next step to putting our collaboration to a whole new level now.
Yes. We would like to thank you so much for this interview. It's a great pleasure to have you on Nile News channel, and can't wait to see you again in Cairo and to discuss more about the relations between Egypt and Senegal. Minister Fall, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
إذا مشاهدينا الكرام، كان هذا لقاء خاص مع معالي وزيرة خارجية السنغال الوزيرة ياسين فال في إطار زيارتها إلى القاهرة. شكرا لكم وإلى اللقاء.